Police and crime investigators in Massachusetts could have a new tool in their arsenal to solve cold cases. State Senator Ann Goby of Spencer and State Representative Todd Smola of Palmer have co-sponsored a bill to allow expanded use of DNA in criminal cases through what's called familial DNA searching. Proponents of this new type of DNA testing say it could help investigators solve cold cases like the Molly Bish case. So what is familial DNA testing and how does it work? Connecting Point's Ray Herschel recently sat down with Representative Smola to find out more.
So it's basically getting a DNA sample from an individual, and ultimately from that sample, a profile can be established. And then ultimately what law enforcement can do with that profile is it can link them into directions of possible suspects that would have not been on the radar screen of law enforcement at all, or to verify that somebody who may have been a suspect in a case would potentially be linked to the scene.
And how potentially could this impact the Molly Bish case? The Molly Bish case is almost 20 years old now. She disappeared in 2000 from her lifeguard job at Commons Pond. Her body found about 3 years later in woods in Palmer. What potential impact could this new testing have in that case?
Anything that's linked to DNA that either would have been found at the scene or something that would have led law enforcement to the path of collecting DNA that's related to the case could ultimately open up a door of potential opportunity, which is something that law enforcement doesn't have as a tool right now. And what people have to understand about the use of familial DNA is that it's not simply a gotcha type of a game. It's a tool that they can use in addition to other tools that law enforcement has at their disposal in order to get a conviction and lead them in the direction of the person who's guilty.
Now, there have been a number of examples where this type of testing has proven successful. Some high-profile cases, for that matter, across the country. Can you give us an example of how it's impacted investigations in other parts of the country?
Sure. I mean, two big cases, the Garden State Killer, which was essentially a case where over the course of many decades, this individual was out committing crime, and all of a sudden, as a result of getting a linkage up through familial DNA, they were able to come back to that individual and then ultimately garner a conviction. The Grim Sleeper was another case of an individual, and the reason he got that nickname is because he had committed a number of crimes, had gone quiet for a number of years, and then came back to it. That was a linkage through familial DNA as well. So connections that were made using this tool, this technology, that would have not otherwise ever been made if they hadn't had access to it. And that's kind of the significance here. It's a tool that law enforcement can use that they otherwise wouldn't have. So
these individuals who were arrested, charged and convicted of these crimes were related to people already in the system, where they made a partial DNA match?
That's correct. So basically it is DNA information that is in a system already that exists, that law enforcement gets access to, and then they can reverse engineer this profile. And I'd like to also reinforce to people that just because you get this information, it doesn't actually guarantee a conviction. You know, familial DNA is a technique that is used in a lot of different ways. In one way, it's to exonerate an individual that may have otherwise been considered a suspect in a case, but all of a sudden you see this linkage through familial DNA and you realize who you once thought was actually responsible for a crime may not necessarily have been linked to the crime itself.
I know you and Senator Goby, who are the sponsors of this familial DNA bill in the Massachusetts Legislature, have worked closely with the Bish family. And I'd like to read a statement now from Heather Bish, who's a spokesperson for the family. Heather was unable to be with us today for this taping, but she did want a statement to be issued on her behalf, and I'd like to read that statement now. And it says, "Developing a process to use familial DNA searching in our DNA database offers the detectives the ability to find perpetrators who committed crimes but are not themselves in the system. This type of analysis is being used to solve violent crimes outside our state, in fact, in 14 other states in this country. It literally widens the net for law enforcement." She goes on to say, "We, the families, live with these crimes every day. Not one day goes by that I don't miss my sister or feel fear about what happened to her. Learning to live with the loss of her life is complicated by the unresolved nature of the crime committed against her." And again, that statement from Heather Bish on behalf of the Bish family. Todd, you have worked very, very closely with the Bish family for many, many years now. Can you talk a little bit about your conversations with the family, how they feel about this familial DNA testing and how it could potentially find Molly's killer?
Heather has been the driving force at this initiative. Talking with her over the years, we've worked on a number of legislative causes, and this one is all Heather. She firmly believes in using it as a technique that law enforcement can take full advantage of. She had come to Senator Goby and I to work on the language for the bill, and she has really been a driving force. I also had the great privilege of actually running into Molly Bish's parents, John and Maggie, who are just an inspiration to so many people. I saw them last week, and the first thing Maggie had said to me was, because this bill had been filed by that time, she said, boy, they're doing so much through using familial DNA in other states. Look at all of these great cases where they are linking to criminals and then getting convictions. So if you want to see an example of a family that has just persevered through a terrible tragedy, the Bish family is it.
There have been advances in DNA testing, obviously, in the last 20 years. Does this kind of testing, the familial DNA testing, does this give the family any additional confidence? Is there something different about this kind of testing that perhaps gives them optimism that they hadn't had in the past with advances?
It gives them hope. It gives them one more avenue that can be pursued that is not pursued up to this point. And they will take anything that they can get in terms of bringing Molly's killer to justice. That is so critically important to them. They were fortunate that Molly's remains were found a few years after she was abducted, and that gave them the ability to close one chapter in Molly's life, but there is a chapter that is still open, and that is finding the guilty party and bringing them to justice.
This kind of DNA testing, familial DNA testing, is relatively new. I think there are about a dozen states or so that have implemented it. But among them who have not is the state of Maryland. I think, as I understand it, primarily because of invasion of privacy concerns. Do you feel that privacy issues could come up in the Massachusetts bill that could potentially make it more difficult to get this bill passed?
I'm sure people will have that concern, but we have to remember that in utilizing this technique, it's not simply getting a family member's DNA sample, plugging into a database, linking to a suspect, and then carting them off to jail. This is a tool that law enforcement uses as part of a process. They still have to go through court, they still have to go through a trial, they still have to have charges filed, they still have to be found guilty of that crime. So all this is doing is leading law enforcement in the direction of potentially looking at an opportunity to try and solve a case that they wouldn't have otherwise had.
Where does the bill stand now in the Massachusetts legislature? Where is it?
So we filed it only a few weeks ago, and we were fortunate enough to get it called before the Judiciary Committee for a late public hearing. Both Senator Goby and I went to testify in favor of it. Heather was there as well to testify very eloquently in favor of the bill. We'd like to try and get it released with a favorable recommendation and move it to the floor of the legislature for action. Now, we are approaching the end of our legislative session cycle over the course of the next few months, so that's going to be a very tall order. But I think given what has happened on the national front with DNA and really worldwide with DNA, that this is becoming a more popular technique. We're trying to rally law enforcement, and we're trying to rally prosecutors and DAs across Massachusetts to stand behind us and get this thing done. I've got to believe that if this tool is passed, it is going to do some good across this state, and I think it could serve as a role model for other states that haven't passed the initiative as well.